is, of course, I'm not allowed to call him the Master of Manton, one of the Masters of Manton now, Brian Meehan. Good to see you.
You too, Nick. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful career punctuated by some great highs. How good does it feel to have a Group 1 horse to go to war with this season in Isaac Shelby?
Yeah, it's everything really. It's you know, it's what we all strive for, is the top horses, top class horses. He looks like he's got a huge future ahead of him. So really exciting individual. And
for you personally as well, to be dining at that top table after a few years where you haven't been, what does that mean?
Well, like I say, it means everything. I mean, you know, it's what we strive for. Me especially, I mean, I think it's, you know, trying to search out those good horses to run in the good races, improve things. You know, that's what gives me a buzz.
Okay, just looking back on some of those memories that we were showing there, which one pulls at your heartstrings most keenly?
Of the horses we looked back at there, I suppose, I don't know really. I mean, there are many, luckily. I guess David Jr., you know, he was so exuberant. He had a huge personality, full of energy, you know, loved the challenge, you know, travelled a lot. We took him to the Breeders' Cup, Dubai. To win 2 Group 1s in England for me was tremendous. But his whole personality, I mean, he really was, he was you know, full of confidence.
We just were watching the footage of the Eclipse, ridden by Jamie Spencer,
yep.
That day, and this is lovely to watch because he showed such a wonderful turn of foot.
Yeah, you know, Jamie really got him. You know, really understood the horse, and obviously won the 3 Group 1s on him. But you know, the two of them really went well together. Jamie always knew what he was going to do each time he went out to ride him. It was wonderful to have him on the horse consistently. It made such a difference. But he was really impressive here today, on this day. Having been slightly disappointing in the Prince of Wales, to bounce back in the Eclipse gave me a lot of pleasure.
Very special day with David Jr. As you say, there've been many of them. Where did it all begin for Brian Meehan? Where did the story of Brian Meehan, the trainer, start?
I suppose we were kind of always surrounded by it at home.
Home was where exactly?
County Limerick in Ireland. Yeah. It was, you know, the population of Ireland at the time was 2.5 million, so everybody knew everybody. It was a kind of the way we were brought up. A lot of hunting, summer jobs, riding out. It was a kind of a natural thing that I always wanted to do.
Who were you riding out for when you were a kid?
Mainly Andrew McNamara, who we lost a couple of years ago, but he was...
So Andrew McNamara Senior. So
senior, yeah.
Many will know his son.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a he was a bit of a legend in Limerick, wasn't he? Andy Mac Senior.
Yeah. Trained some lovely horses over the years, Cheltenham winners, etc. He was a great man, really. But I used to cycle over and go and ride out, and I think I was 14 or something, and occasionally get paid. But I loved it. You know, it was a wonderful time. They were very good to me. They were, you know, not far away, so I could cycle. It was great fun. You know, you were with all the old characters, and you know, you saw so much, and it was just kind of natural, really, at the time.
And that sort of gives the impression of quite a carefree upbringing, quite a lovely childhood you're painting.
Yeah, well, it was a little while ago now. So yeah, things were, you know, we were kind of, I wouldn't say feral, but we were able to do whatever, you know, as long as we turned up at school, everything was fine.
Feral can be good, can't it?
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah.
And so then, in school itself, were you applied? Were you excelling? How were you doing?
Well, I suppose parts of it interested me, but not hugely.
Which bits?
The rugby, probably, and I had some good friends at school, so we always had a lot of fun. Yeah, no, school was something that had to be done, and
had to be got through.
And then I moved straight onto it.
So when did things start getting serious?
I suppose I did. I went to the Irish National Stud for a couple of years, got a lot of experience there and confidence. And then I went to work for Richard Hannon for 6 months at the time. And
So you're how old at this point?
I guess maybe 19, something like that. And then went back, came home for Christmas and went back and stayed for another 5 years. Great times. Great times.
What was it specifically that drew you back to Richard Hannon?
I said the fact that he was willing to give me a chance, you know. I guess maybe he hadn't had an assistant as such before, and maybe the idea tickled him. You know, he's got a sense of humour like that. But he gave me a chance, and that made all the difference, you know.
And which were the horses that were in lights when you were at Hannon's?
Well, he had Don't Forget Me that year. The year
so
I went.
89,
yeah,
88, 89, something like
that.
87 maybe even. Yeah.
Tyrrell came along shortly afterwards, but towards the end of my time, there was some amazing horses. I mean, Mr. Brooks was there. Mm-hmm. We had some tremendous horses.
Lyric Fantasy,
Lyric Fantasy, yeah. Niche, some lovely horses over the years.
Was Richard somebody who would tell you things, or did you just learn by watching?
You were in the routine. You could learn by watching, obviously, because there was a good routine there, which always struck me as, and since then as being important to the horses. But yeah, you know, he would give information freely and loudly at times.
So what made him able to establish such a powerhouse for training establishment? When you take a step back from it now and look upon yourself as a young man working for Richard Hannon, what made him influential and successful?
I mean, the work ethic was incredible. I mean, you know, morning started early, a lot of travelling, racing. He was always in the yard in the mornings, and, you know, there was a lot of racing in the afternoon. I think it was just kind of work ethic and the, you know, desire to win and make the thing work. It's an institution now.
But you could see evidence of his endeavour, basically. You could see how hard he was working, and everybody else followed. Yeah,
absolutely. There's no question. We'd have work mornings on a Sunday morning. You know, towards the end, I would work a 6.5-day week. We'd have Sunday afternoon off, maybe. But you loved it, you know, because there was so much going on all the time, and lots of improvement, and, you know, continued. You know, there was a great flow of really good horses, as there still is now with Richard.
And it's a sort of certain kind of relentless energy to that place.
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's what we all strive for: good horses and success. You know, it's all about winning, and, you know, when that's happening, you know, you know, the whole thing will manifest itself into, you know, further success. That's the idea.
And what about Hannon Senior as a manager of people? Obviously, you're there. You're his right-hand man. Give me a flavour of that, of your relationship.
Yeah, strong character. I mean, he was, you know, he's a man with a lot of charisma. Even, you know, as you work for him, you know, he was always someone who was important to you, and to all the staff. We all enjoyed working for him. It was good.
So to what extent during that period are you thinking, well, actually, this is great? And to what extent are you thinking, right, I need to be on a licence, I need to be doing this myself?
Yeah, I guess the time sort of came. At one stage, I thought maybe I was ready, and I don't know, I can't remember what it was, but something happened in the yard, and I had to deal with. And I thought, no, I'm not ready quite yet. And I guess then there was a sort of a natural progression to when I should start. I mean, he had, you know, there was Richard, who's training now, and Fanny, his sister. They were coming back to the yard, and it was probably time for me to move out.
Okay,
but I was keen, you know, and I was ready. And Richard and Joe, his wife, Jo Hannon, they supported me so much when I started.
So what was what enabled you to break out on your own? What were the circumstances that led to you taking that first step?
Well, you know, it was something that I always wanted to train. Mm-hmm. You know, that was the priority. I enjoyed where I was. I loved what I was doing. I loved the job. But it was time, you know. You know, if you're, I remember the boss said to me one day, if you got to go and do it. If you don't get on and do it, you might never do it. And I thought, well, let's go.
So how did you do it?
Rented a yard in Lambourne, gathered up a few horses. I think I had 5, maybe 6, 4 2-year-olds and 2 older horses. A few people supported me. As I said, Jo Hannon and a friend of hers they actually owned my first winner, a horse called Connect at Brighton.
That's when you know that your old boss wants you to do well.
Yeah, or get rid of you.
Or get rid of you.
Yeah, no. I mean, that was tremendous. I mean, I after a couple of months, I remember running out of money, and my holiday and pool money turned up from, you know, the previous quarter I'd been at Hannon. So, I mean, that was, you know, that support was tremendous, you know.
Do you think if it had been now, you'd have been able to do the same thing?
It's different now. I think that, you know, there are a lot of young people, men and women, starting each year. It's different. I mean, it's 30 years since I started.
Is it really?
Yeah, and I think I was only the second trainer in 2 years to start. Sorry, only the first. Willie Muir had started a year before. So it was about a year, 2 years, and it was only he and I had started. So I don't know how it's different now. I mean, it's you know, there's a lot of energy required. It's social media, I suppose, instant communication. I mean, when I first started, you know, maybe Richard would call the owners the next morning, and then there was a car phone, so they'd get a phone call on the way home. But it's instant now. I mean, it's pictures in the paddock, recording the jockey after the race, sending it immediately, owners ringing you as soon as the horse is over the line, before you've even had a chance to think, well, that wasn't so bad, you know, we can work on that, even though it maybe looks disappointing initially. So I guess that makes it a little more difficult, but you condition to that, and, you know, young people starting out are conditioned to it, much more so than I would be if I was starting now at the age of 55. But, you know, we're good. We have systems, and it's good. And I think most, all my owners are happy with communication. Should be.
I suppose one thing I was trying to get at was, if you just wanted to start off in the same way now, rent a yard, half a dozen horses, a little bit, not carefree, but, you know, on the fly a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do that, or are the economic pressures and staff pressures such that it would almost make it unviable?
Well, I think, yeah, no, I think it would be as easy, maybe a little easier, probably.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of support, say, in Lambourne with the, you know, since the Jockey Club bought the Gallops.
That's good.
You know, I believe they have yards, starter yards, certainly in Newmarket, I think. So I think that generally there's good support if a young person wants to start training, handful of horses, see how it goes. I mean, you can't really take that attitude. You have to take a handful of horses and hope you're going to grow. You know, you've got to be positive about it. But I think it's the evidence being that we're seeing a lot of young people starting each year. So it's all right. So
from your point of view, was there a moment when you became a trainer who was always going to have group winners? So you started off with just a handful of horses, things went well. Was there a point where you thought, right, I'm about to dine somewhere near the top table?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember I had left a setup that was
regular,
sitting at the head of the top table. So, you know, it was a desire from the word go to get good horses and train good winners. So,
and was there an expectation on you, do you think, within the industry? Did people think, well, this guy's Hannon's bright young thing, he's going to fly?
Perhaps. I never felt that. It never crossed my mind, really. It was really only kind of, you know, my own drive to do it as soon as possible and get established.
Okay, so what was the turning point?
I guess there were my first stakes when it was the national stakes. Michael Cannan rode him for me that day. But there were two horses probably that seemed to change everything. One was
Amaretto Boy, wasn't it? The national
Amaretto
stakes?
Bay, yeah. There was Tumbleweed Ridge, who won the Horace Hill, and around the same time I had Tomba, who won the Cork and Ori, which is now the Golden Jubilee or the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes.
Yes.
And those two horses were tremendous. You know, Tomba won a Group 3 in Germany one weekend, and on the way home we stopped in Paris and he won a Group 1 the following weekend. You know, Tumbleweed Ridge, he was beaten a whisker fourth in the Windsor Castle, but he won the Horace Hill, won multiple group races for me in France and Ireland as well. So they were two great horses that kind of gave me the taste, and I thought, right, this is this is where we are, you know.
And then you're in the sweet spot, aren't you? Because you're a guy in your late 20s, you've had group winners, everybody wants to have a horse with you then.
It's
you're kind of perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of hot. And because there weren't a lot of young people starting, you know, I was kind of the only one, really. So it was good, yeah. You know, a lot of people turned up and trained some lovely horses. But, I guess contacts from Hannon days, like David Sullivan, Eamon Connolly used to manage the horses for David Sullivan, David Gold. I obviously met them when I worked at Hannon's, but they came along, and yeah, it was great. Some wonderful owners, thankfully, over the years. And
you're someone who is, you know, had a reputation, I think, at the time for being pretty gregarious and good with owners, and that if they had a horse with you, you wouldn't just train the winners, but you'd show them a good time as well. Is that very much from the Hannon school, do you think? Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, you know, you have to be generous with your clients when they come and see their horses. You know, make sure your owner's enjoying themselves. It's all part of the experience. It's you know, some owners don't require it, you know, they don't necessarily come to the yard that often. It's not necessarily why they have a horse with you, but some people do have horses with you because they want the fun as well. There's many layers of significance with the Isaac Shelby story, and clearly he's running in different colours now, but he started off running in those famous Sangster silks. Tell me about the influence that the Sangster family have had on you, and why. Well, it's mainly my association, friendship with Sam Sangster. He and I are very close. We work closely together on a lot of different things, even though we're both independent of each other business-wise. But when he put the Manton Thoroughbreds partnership together about 8 years ago now, that connection became really strong, and it's done very well. I mean, that's, you know, other than, you know, training at Manton, which is a beautiful place, you know, it's this time of the year, it's just stunning. Yeah, good friendships, but, you know, my association with Sam is very strong. And do you feel that sense of history a little bit as well, of what their family have achieved, and particularly training at Manton? You feel the sense of history to a degree, but, you know, you must always look forward. I mean, obviously, a lot of great horses and a lot of great races were trained there, you know, over the years, over the century and a half, I think, or more now. But, you know, everybody is doing very, you know, lots of Group 1 winners have been trained out of there since, and, you know, it's good. Obviously, there was that golden period we were talking about where you had David Jr., who we saw at the beginning of the show, Red Rocks and Dangerous Midge, I thought was... I mean, I certainly don't want to damn the horse with faint praise, but I always look at that honour roll and think, that's got to be Brian Meehan's finest performance, getting a Breeders' Cup Turf winner out of what was a very nice but not brilliant horse. Yes, yeah. Or am I being a bit... And we're looking at Red Rocks. Oh, we're looking at Red Rocks here. No, we're looking at Dangerous Midge. No, we are looking at Dangerous Midge, yeah. With Dangerous Midge, he won the Arc Trial at Newbury. He was impressive that day, and he'd won a big handicap previous to that at Haydock. I guess it was a matter of, I don't know, time and place. The race was right. The horse was in great shape. I had Frankie on board. You know, his interpretation of fractions is infallible. But, you know, he was pretty impressive today, this horse. And, he was. And he was leading up to it. You know, there was no fluke there. He trained very well the sort of week before on the track when we ponied him and what have you. His personality really sort of came alive, and he was strong and very bullish, which wasn't always like him at home. So he really enjoyed the track, and I think that made a big difference. And you'd done it before as well, of course, with Red Rocks in 2006. And again, that was quite an unconventional route to Breeders' Cup glory, wasn't it? Yeah, I guess so. He'd run some lovely races at Ascot and the Grand Prix de Paris, but we were able to stop after the St Leger. Paul Redham, who owned him, and Jamie McCalmont, who managed him. You know, they said that this is what they'd like me to do, and I said I wanted to stop after the St Leger. So I think it worked really well. He was a very, very good horse, though, Red Rocks. Very good horse, a lot of talent. I mean, how much, if you would compare him and Dangerous Midge, this fella would be a couple of notches above, wouldn't he?
He would be. I mean, he won 2 Group 1s, but his enthusiasm for racing was so strong, and he was really, really good. He had a lot of class. He was a good horse. The Man of War was particularly good when he won that day as well. So, yeah, he was very good.
One of the first horses to put a certain Galileo on the map as well.
That's right.
As a stallion. First 3 in the ledger that year.
First
Do you
crop.
remember?
Yeah.
I sometimes feel bad when I bring Delegator up, because he was he might have won 29 out of 30 2,000
I
guineas.
think so. Yes, yeah, I think so. But you bump into See the Stars, and he becomes one of the greatest horses since Nijinsky, and I mean, there's maybe you could 2 hands to mention all the great horses that we can remember today in this studio, and you're looking at Frankel and all that sort of thing. See the Stars. I mean, he just was something else, and to bump into him that day was such a shame. But there we are. That's racing.
I mean, you'd won the Craven in a hack canter, and then
we were second in the Guineas in a hack canter as well. But it was not to be. We'd heard a rumour the week before that this thing at John Ox's was a good thing. We
Really?
were warned the week before that
he was quite a good big price, wasn't he? Stars in the Guineas.
Yeah, but the word was really strong on him, and I thought, oh God, here we go. Anyway, never mind.
So when you went into that race, even though I think you were favourite or nearly second favourite, maybe, and he was, I don't know, whatever he was, a fairly decent price, you knew he was the one to be.
Yes, I mean that was, rumour had it the week before that he was the one to beat. But we were really strong in our fella, and again, Jamie Spencer, who'd ridden him, and he was really confident as well. So we went in there with maximum confidence, but we knew that there was possibly something special in there too.
In terms of Delegator's subsequent career, do you look back on it and think what might have been? Do you think he was a horse whose CV didn't really tally with his ability?
Yes, I think he probably should have gone on and done better things than he did. But perhaps the beating that day from See the Stars, maybe that psychologically possibly had an effect on the horse. But he then got it was a tough race in the St James's Palace with Mark of Master Craftsman. So he had some tough races.
Mm. So of course now we come back these few years later to the St James's Palace with Isaac Shelby. Now, in the intervening period, you've had plenty of winners. You've had plenty of nice winners. But the Brian Meehan powerhouse that is more of a boutique these days. What's changed in that intervening period?
Well, I guess, maybe your sort of, your directives change a little.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
your priorities change a bit.
Yeah, not so much priorities. It's still about winning the best races as often as you can. But it's, for example, 2010, I think I had maybe 160 horses, and that wasn't altogether the most enjoyable part of my training career. We start each year now with about 70, try and push for 80. That's much better. And it's for me at this stage, that's what I really enjoy. One of the head lads is off at the moment, so I go in and feed in the morning. I mean, you couldn't do that if you had 160, 180 horses. I mean, we got up to just under 200 at one time. And that was a lot. And, with numbers, you get access to good horses more frequently. It's law of averages. Mm-hmm. But what's happened over the last few years is that, I do the sales with Sam, and we have to put in a lot more work into the individuals. Everything has to be seen twice if possible. We don't necessarily have the big budgets or bigger budgets or as big a budget as we'd like. So we have to be, as canny as possible when it comes to selecting the yearlings. I don't really do the breeze up sales. So it's all about the yearling sale period is really important. And he does the research into the pedigrees. We look at the horses together. And that's made a big difference over the last few years. And I've been able to shift towards, there are a number of 2-year-olds at home at the moment that I think could be really, really nice, and we'll take our time. There's no pressure. I train for nice people. No one's ever ever putting me under pressure, and there's no rush. So it's a slightly different path we're taking, but the same priorities.
But it seems from everything you're saying that you are much happier in yourself than you were a decade ago.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
And that is down to the fact that you have you're in control of your.
Yes, yeah.
You feel in control of what you've got.
Yeah, I think when the numbers were big, it was that was that early period at Manton when, I could do 40 miles in a day and not leave the estate, and that was hard. Mm-hmm. But I had really good staff, and we were having a lot of winners and good winners, and but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted out of it. Was where I am now is what I really enjoy.
Because you wouldn't get that, you weren't getting that kind of fulfillment.
No, I mean it's everybody in my trade, we all work really, really hard. Mm-hmm. You can't get anything unless you put it in. It's as simple as that. But for me, maybe at a time, I was kind of losing sight of what the reason I really did it, and that's because of the horses. You do it because of the horses. You meet nice people. It's a good life, but it's a lifestyle. It's you wake up, you go straight to it. I often joke, wouldn't it be nice to get up in the morning, go for coffee, go for a walk with the dogs? Well, if I did that, I'd have to get up at 3:30 in the morning, which I'm not going to do. So it's different,
Absolutely, and I think now you've got it all worked out. You can
hopefully
you can move forward. This horse next week or 10 days' time, Isaac Shelby. Do you believe, with all the experience we've talked about and with all your understanding of the horse, that this is a senior level Group 1 winner waiting to happen?
Definitely, no question. I mean, he proved that the last time he ran in Paris. I think he's a horse with a huge future. There's the possibility he could maybe stay in training next year as well, depending obviously on how this year goes. But I think he's got a huge, huge future, and I really do think it's at a mile.
And so your feeling after the Poulain, when he was just run down in the dying strides, was that maybe you'd have a little look at the Commonwealth Cup over 6. What's kind of swayed you back towards the St James's Palace?
He's much more relaxed since Paris. He's much more relaxed in his work. He's put on a little bit of weight. He's kind of maturing. You've always got to cover yourself with these horses that you have the options of different distances, different races, especially at the start of their 3-year-old career, because things can shift. Mm-hmm. But now, we made the Commonwealth entry a little while back and the July Cup. But since Paris, I'm much more confident that mile is the correct move.
And he might stay in training, as you say, which is a great thing if that's the case.
It's been mentioned. Obviously, it depends how well the horse does this year. He's got to prove himself a little bit more, I guess. He's almost there. But he's an exciting horse.
OK, we will talk a little bit more about Isaac Shelby, a little bit more about Ascot, a little bit more with Brian Meehan in a couple of moments' time when Maddie rejoins us after this.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.